You're tuned into the Writing Community Chat Show, the live streaming YouTube podcast that brings you the stories of authors, screenwriters, and more. Indie or established, this show's for the community, and we invite you to be a part of it. Head to the writingcommunitychatshow.com for more info. The WCCS. Together as one, we get it done.
Hello and welcome to the Writing Community Chat Show. Welcome everybody to the Writing Community Chat Show. We are piling through the interviews for season 17, which is quite incredible. We were talking just before we started the show that we're around our birthday of the 6 years this show has been going, which is pretty nuts to think about. We did joke about, nearly a decade. That's the next milestone, and we'll be older, a lot older. But yes, it's been amazing. The journey is amazing. We've got another great guest for you tonight. And of course, I'm sat here with my co-host, Chris Hooley. How has your week been, Chris? How are things? Yeah, it's been a good week. Looking forward to tonight's interview. Do you know what I did this week? I started reading a book called The Air Affair by Jasper Fforde, and we've had him on. And I got midway through the book and I thought, I've read this before. But it was only it must have been 10 years ago that I've read it. So I'm kind of enjoying the comfort of kind of knowing it, but not remembering it enough for it to be boring. So, that's my week. Three Dragon Press in the chat. Hello to you guys. You read a book, ? Yes, I read an awful lot of books, actually. Do you? And yeah, back to Jasper Fforde is a favourite. I've not read the Thursday Next series in its entirety, and I like a series. I'm deep into the Rivers of London series. I thought, get another one. Jasper Fforde. I've read his nursery crime books, and they're brilliant. So I thought, I'm just going to settle in with Jasper and read the Thursday Next series. We've got viewers in from, and this is probably related to our guest, that the fact he's lived in so many places, but we've got tuning in from Ireland, Pomeroy. I hope I'm saying that right. Hello to you guys. We've got someone tuning in from Berlin, Anya, and Anna, and someone in from Kenya as well. So Thank you very much, Yvonne. Great to see you all in the chat. Please do get involved. And speak to each other in the chat. You've got a great bunch of people in there that will talk all about writing and really kind of weird, dark stuff if you want them to. But that's the joy of tuning in live. And you get to ask your questions to our guests and to us throughout as well. We've gained a lot of knowledge from all of the interviews that we've done. I keep saying 380, but it's definitely probably 390 now, right, Chris? We're approaching that 400. Oh, at least, yeah. And obviously all the little ones that we do at Harrogate. So they're going to be good this year. We've got some really good authors on the Harrogate bill this year, so looking forward to that. It's going to be a good one. I've got one bit of news in the writing world that I was going to share. It's nothing major. It might be, but it kind of is. It depends how you look at it. So there's currently a huge protest from Jane Austen fans because a historic hotel where she famously danced is being converted into student housing. So there's been massive protests about that. Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to say on that, to be honest. Yeah, but what do you think about that? Do you think it should be something kept and looked after based on the fact that she just danced there? Or no. Am I being a bit cynical? No, I don't think so. We've got her books. I don't think she'd be bothered, to be honest. Would she even remember dancing there? Maybe not. Should be dancing in a grave. Okay, so Halo says happy Friday the 13th. No, she doesn't. Friday the 13th, and yay, Friday the 13th. I was born on that day. Explains quite a lot. But what we're going to do is we're going to get our guest on. I'm going to have a good chat all about writing. Lots of advice and tips come out the show, so please do take that in. But also, it's Friday evening. Have a good time. We have drinks, as do our guest. You're welcome to join us in that sense. So, joining us today is an author who has successfully navigated almost every corner of the indie publishing world, from the high-energy werewolf rockstar world of the Mostly Human series to the sharp, humorous detective fiction of a guy, a girl, and a voodoo monkey hand. His work is defined by offbeat wit and quirky characters.
a seasoned traveler who has called 7 different countries home. He currently writes from Berlin, where he also manages the Berlin Poetry Club, a project that saw him write a new short story every week for over 4 years. While his website reminds us that everything's going to be just fine, his latest work takes a darker turn. We're here to talk about his brand new psychological thriller, Blurred Lines. So please do welcome to the show, D.I. Jolly. Hello.
Hello. Cheers.
Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah, brilliant. I'm glad that you have bought a drink with us to celebrate a Friday evening. Are you in Berlin at the moment?
I am.
So what time are you there? Because I haven't quite worked that out.
It's 9 o'clock.
Oh, that's not too bad. Just an hour difference. We had someone join us on the show from 5 o'clock their time before, and we have been asked to host the show at 5 a.m., but we were not so keen on that.
Perhaps not.
Yeah. So.
Oh, I can't hear you.
Hello, howdy, hi, aho. So the first thing that we love to do in the show is obviously rewind the clock a bit and find out where your inspiration.
Hear you at all.
You can't hear me?
We may have a problem.
Oh dear me. He could hear us. That's the funny thing. Welcome to live video feeds, guys. He's pulling some faces. All right. So what I'd like you to do in the chat whilst this is happening, he's muted himself, is let us know how your week's been. How much writing have you done? Because we were talking about that just before we came on the show, that I had not been very productive. Our guest has been, and Chris Hooley's been doing a bit of reading and mixing it up. So if you've been writing a lot this week or writing at all, let us know in the chat. We will try and fix this issue as soon as we can.
I've heard of people spontaneously combusting, but not spontaneously going deaf.
Yeah, I hope that's a technical issue. You can hear everyone. Yeah, we appreciate that. Communications were working just fine before we started the show, and as the start of the show happened. So I don't know what's going on there.
Maybe when he did a cheers, he might have pulled out his mic or his headphones.
Possibly. But I do like the fact that we get to watch someone looking very pensive as he tries to figure out a problem.
Maybe we should communicate with him in the private chat as well. I'll do that.
Yeah, you do that. Actually, what I would like you to do is, based on the fact that we can't hear the guest right now, is to put in some questions if they're about writing or some random stuff, because me and Chris have had 380 plus shows. We've learned a lot from our guests. So if you want to ask us any questions, please do send them in, even if they're random, not writing based. Someone says, whiteboard and market interview. Now that would be quite funny.
So a bit of insight. I've just said, did you pull out your headphones for the cheers? So we'll see if that was an option.
Oh, when the glass went up, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Yeah. It's quite possible. Do you hear us?
I do now.
Yes.
Yes, we're back.
I don't know what happened. It's that fun thing. Everything works until the moment it has to.
Yep, absolutely. Don't worry about it. It's all good. You still there?
Yeah, I'm just... Yep. That seems to be the microphone the computer wants to use. That's the one we're going to use.
Amazing. Okay, so I'm going to play this quick little video, and then we'll learn all about how we got into the world of writing, which is what I was saying before you couldn't hear us, because we like to learn that story. And normally we ask, kind of where you're from and what the writing scene is like there. But we'll get onto that in a bit, because you've lived in a lot of different places. So I would like to tap into that. But here is the road to writing, and then we'll ask you all about how that journey started. So, Jolly, how did you get into the world of writing? What were the inspirations for you? And do you remember when that was?
Yeah, I was about 8 years old and I was playing a video game called Gabriel Knight, Sins of the Father, and I decided that he was the coolest person in the world and that's who I wanted to be when I grew up. And he was a failing novelist, so here I am.
Yeah.
And I got it was this idea that stuck in my head, sort of the last childhood dream standing, and I kind of clouded. I never had that idea of if you're a fan of Batman, you want to be Batman when you grow up, dress in t-shirts that have Batman's face on. I was like, no, Batman doesn't wear Batman merch. He dresses like Batman. So I didn't want to have Gabriel Knight things. I wanted a trench coat and a white t-shirt and blue jeans because that's how he dressed. I was a small child. And then I started to try and write things. Most of them were not very good, but I kept that idea going until I sort of almost accidentally finished a large writing project when I was about 19. I'm like, this is almost a book, and if I keep at this, I can turn it into something that is long enough to call the novel, which was then eventually what became A Guy, a Girl, and the Voodoo Monkey Hand.
Which is a fascinating name. But also, do you think it was down to the fact that you did write so much at that point, that the belief came, had that not happened, do you think you would have eventually written anything book-wise?
Maybe, because I still fell into art and I still fell into trying to do stuff, and I always wanted to tell the story more than draw the picture. And I'm a believer that talent is just the patience to spend enough time to get good at something.
Yeah, I agree.
All art is just practice.
Well, both. So talk to us about that fascinating book title.
Well, look, I love that book. It's not very good, but I love it. It still reads to me like a book that is written by a teenager, but it very much is a very diegetic title. It's a detective and a girl and a voodoo monkey hand whose name is Jeff.
Yeah, amazing. And how have people reacted to that being an interesting title as it is? Such an interesting title.
You get accused of both things. Some people go, "Oh, this is obviously just like an attention grab title," and you're just trying to you're just doing it to get people's attention. Like, that's all book titles ever. And then some people are just like, "This is so funny. Like, I kind of want to know what it's about." And then they read it and like, "Wow, this book really is it's about a guy, a girl, and a voodoo monkey hand."
Yeah.
And I don't know how you made that a real thing, but you did.
There's a Bad Monkey TV show, Monkeys Are Trending. I don't think one show called Bad Monkey is considering monkeys trending, but I get it, kind of.
Again, really good book. Jelly, I'm interested. Obviously, once you had that idea, 19 years old, you got that first book under your belt, ready to go. How do you sort of kick on from that, and what did you do in terms of getting that book out there into the world?
Well, that was the thing. Like, up until that point, being a writer was kind of a pipe dream. It was this idea, this thing that I wanted to do, and crossing that line of actually having this finished project, I was like, this is now something I can do. I've got a lot of proof that I can actually do this. And then suddenly it's like my mind unlocked. I'm like, oh, this isn't just something I'm saying that I want to do. I've actually done it now. I can do it again. And then started diving in and trying to do other things. And I think it was about 22, 23, I was emailing publishers that had open submissions and just sort of sending it out there blindly, not really knowing what I was doing. Until a sort of a semi-vanity press that is luckily closed down went, sure, you've written a book, we'll put it out there, and they published it. And I was like, okay, now I have a book that's published that's people can buy. Sort of childhood dream come true, I guess. What do you do when your dreams come true? 23, 24 years old. I'm like, well, I guess I write the next one. And then just started writing more.
So how did you feel like, how did you take on the approach of writing differently from your first to your second book, knowing that you actually got it, got that success to get it published? So did you change your approach at all? Did you decide to research more or learn more about writing, or did you just keep going with what you felt was right?
Well, the first one was pretty much just sort of writing away at a thing until it became long enough that it was a book. Whereas the second one, I'm like, no, I want to write this book. I've got I've got an idea in my head that's basically a full story that I like, and I've kind of got these people wandering around my head that I enjoy spending time with. So let me go. And then as I started writing it, every time I came up against a new question that I didn't have the answer to, then I'd start going in and doing more research and reading, and then learn something that make me have to go back to the beginning and rewrite the whole thing again. Because, oh, that's an interesting fact, and that completely, the truth of that situation completely destroys the story I've written up until now. Damn. And then I'd start again.
Someone in the chat said, make sure you mention how did he get to werewolf. So how did that transition happen?
But with Mostly Human, which was actually the second book I wrote, even though it was the third book I published, I felt vampires were a little overdone. And I always liked the idea that if you took wolves who mate for life and humans that try and mate for life, and you put them together, I never understood why you'd get a mindless monster. I think you'd get a much more caring sort of group protective creature than sort of a mindless killing machine. And that's sort of where that idea of like, well, let me write about werewolves rather than anything else.
I like that concept, and I think I just never really got into vampires myself. And I know a lot of people, like, the Twilight world exploded and things like that, but it's just never really been something that's got my attention. They're very unrealistic, unlike, zombies and werewolves that I do like.
No, I mean, I like vampires. I like the idea of sort of the original idea of vampires, which was social commentary at the time. It was the rich are literally feeding off the blood of the poor to stay alive and wealthy and forever. It was societal commentary, making them actual monsters that live off the blood of people. Not, look, if very, very pretty creatures of the night are what get you into reading, more power to you. They were never aimed at me. I never got into those ones.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept when you look at it that way, isn't it?
Yeah. I was going to say, obviously, from that idea in terms of, vampires being sort of like a social commentary, what is it that you try to do when you're writing, and what's your sort of like muse, if you like, whenever you start a new book? It's like, I'm writing about this thing.
I normally find interesting people in my head, which makes me sound about as insane as I am. And then I try and what's the most interesting way to tell that story, and how can you write it in a way that is both something that if you just read it, you get the story and you understand, and something that if you dig a little bit deeper, there is more there. Like the more you look, the more there is there, but you don't have to look very hard to find an interesting story. Like with Mostly Human, I based the lycanthropy largely on bipolar disorder, which then led me into a lot of very interesting research of learning, but not just like sort of the demonized version of, bipolar people are up and down and they can ruin their lives or make them, but the positive and negative aspects of bipolar, where often bipolar are wildly creative people, and they also grab everybody around them and drag them up with them when they're on their ups, and then when they're on their downs, they just hardcore isolate, which gives this very strange dynamic that they show. But it's not all bad and it's not all terrible. It's much more detrimental to the person than the people around them, but there is an impact that sort of spreads out like ripples in water. And so Alex, being a werewolf, has this amazing voice and meets these guys who are very into music and gets sort of hyped up and drags them all up, like, let's go, let's do this, because I want to be normal. I hate being a werewolf. I want to be a normal person. Normal people want to be rock stars. Let's be rock stars. And that kind of drive to be normal is sort of also taken from the bipolar side, not just lycanthropy, but in his human life as well. So it's sort of telling, so if you dig deep, so if you just read the story, it's hopefully just a fun story about a kid who's bitten when he's 10 years old, who grows up to be a rock star, even though he's a werewolf. Yeah. But then if you dig a little deeper, there are these things. There is this sort of hopefully accurate.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Of other things,
because when you write such a well-known genre and a trope like a vampire or a werewolf or a zombie, and you do it differently, do you get that kind of crossover where readers are expecting this traditional werewolf behavior, but then they read what you've done with the work. Do they get surprised by that, or do they just kind of get on with it and accept it for what it is?
I think some people get on and accept it for what it is, but I've gotten some reviews on my books where people have gone, I read the synopsis of this book, I read the first sort of quarter of this book, and I thought I knew exactly what was going to happen. And then everything after that was completely unexpected and completely new. I had no idea what was going, and I loved it. Which is obviously a wonderful thing to read. You know, you don't want to read that people hate it. But I have read reviews of people going, because of course I read the reviews, that, you know, those turns and that sort of deeper side of it takes them by surprise, but then it's so refreshing, hopefully, that they get more drawn in and more excited because they then don't know what's going to happen, rather than it just being sort of like a normal comfort read that's like, you just eat it and get on with your life.
Absolutely. So what advice would you have for someone who who hasn't done it, but wants to step into that kind of world where they're going to take something that was already there historically, kind of, we know what they're all about, but wants to change the narrative slightly? What advice would you give them based on what you've done?
I'd say, like, trust yourself. Trust that your idea is an original idea. Don't try and write that book. If you read that book and you're like, oh, I've got an idea of what to do with that, don't then follow the conventional wisdom of, well, this one was successful, so write it like that. Write your book the way you want to write it. If you've got an idea and a path in your head that you want to follow that path, because it'll take you to where you want to go. And that's how you get to original places. Even if you start from the same point as somebody else, but you go, I'm going to go that way. And everyone's going to say, no. But these books go that way. Just go, no, my idea is that way. Follow that idea.
So with that then, did you sort of passion for like publishing books and writing stories, how did that go to being spread to, you know, writing short stories weekly, running your poetry group as well?
Poetry Club started as a way to do something different in the bar we all always drank in anyway. It was just a sort of a way to do something. Like I had my book launch, again, for Mostly Human, in a bar. And everyone was like, this was fun, let's do something different. And I'd been pitched the idea for an anthology where a bunch of people get together. We get a week and a topic, and 30 people write a short story, and then we make an anthology out of it, whatever it is, which never happened. But I liked the idea. So I pitched it to the people that were at my launch, and a week later, 4 people showed up, and we all had short stories. Poetry Club's actually been going for 10 years. It was weekly for 4.5. It's now monthly. But Poetry Club's been going solidly for 10 years. I've written over 300 short stories in the last 10 years just for Poetry Club. Doing it weekly was insane, though. Like you could not maintain. At some point, I just went, I need to write something else. Because I wrote, what was it, 200 short stories in 4 years.
Wow. It's incredible. What was the
best thing I've ever done for my writing? That much practice under that sort of strict guideline, like with a theme and a topic, or with a topic and a deadline. Like I think anybody can see the difference of the books I've written before Poetry Club and after Poetry Club.
Yeah. I was going to say, what do you think the main difference was between the people that would go in there and engaging in that so consistently, not just like on the writing technical basis, but on sort of the community aspects and maybe the confidence of the people that would go in potentially just starting out in their writing career?
Well, I think it helped because it was such a range of people. We had me that had a bunch of books out. We had some people that were copywriters and artists, and people that just wanted to participate, and because we were always this mix of people. Anyone who was like, oh, I'm kind of thinking about being a writer, we go, come and listen, and you can hear that everybody has the same topic, and everybody writes something completely different.
Yeah.
You learn that there are no wrong answers to what your story is. That idea that you have, even though it seems really, really obvious to you, isn't what anybody else is going to think of. When you show up and you're like, I just wrote this, and they read it, and then they hear that nobody else wrote anything like that. They're like, oh, my ideas have value. And then we have thoughts and comments and questions at the end, and we give feedback.
I was going to say, what's the difference between, it may sound stupid, but I don't think a lot of writers read their work aloud to an audience. So sort of what lessons did you learn from that process?
I mean, it was really interesting how quickly everybody got into their head of writing in a different way because you knew you were going to be reading it out loud. Excuse me. And it does change the way you think about it, because you do think more in terms of storytelling, which is an interesting way to think, because you're suddenly, you are thinking about the immediate audience while you're writing it, rather than just sort of going into your head of, what do I want to do? Where am I going with this? You're like, oh, no, people are going to hear this in 3 days. What is the story I need to tell in this short space of time? Because people are actually going to hear it, and they have to hear you say it. So you don't want to do, you immediately start to change from large blocks of text to conversations are easier to follow. You can give, but you don't want to do too many characters, because that gets confusing when they can't see the words on the page, they can't see the conversation breaks. So it does change the way you think about that story.
Did you ever set yourself any targets of like, I want to make somebody, like one of my things is I'd love somebody to pass out reading my fiction or be sick or something. Did you ever think, oh, I'm going to try and do that this week? Or, we have to challenge each other to see who can get the most laughs or write the most gruesome thing? And Chris has got a ghost in his house.
Nice.
It just fell off.
Yeah. Not so visceral, but I didn't necessarily do it on purpose. I had the idea in my head that it might happen. I definitely made a bunch of people cry. I've got recurring characters named Josh and Johnny, who are usually I have no idea what to write about with this topic, so I'm just going to have Josh and Johnny talk about it. And they're usually sort of the friends, buddies that a Josh and Johnny story is just two guys sitting on a couch talking about something, trying to be slightly entertaining for 1,000 words because I have a deadline and no idea what to write about. And then I've written something like 35 Josh and Johnny stories. So I've changed it over the years and had them at different stages of their life. And I thought, how do I write the end of this story? Like, these people who've been friends forever and at the end of their life. And I tied it right back to the very first story. The end line of the first story is the same end line as the story at the end of their life. And two people at the table just, as I said the last line, burst into tears and were like, we knew that was going to be the last line and how dare you? And just like consoling people. I'm like, victory.
Yes, love it. I would just put in the chat, what's the most unexpected reaction you've had to read in? So let us know if you've cried at someone's work or been sick like Chris wants to make people. I think that's kind of an interesting way to look at it. I don't think as a writer I've ever thought about what reaction, like physical reaction, am I going to get or make the reader have? Is that something either of you do, actively when you write, or do you just think about the story generally?
Not on purpose. I did read a review, again, there aren't many, where the one person wrote that they started crying so hard that their partner ran into the room to find out what was going on, and then was like, oh, you're just reading.
Who hurt you? I go find him.
Yeah. What's gone wrong? Oh, you're just reading.
So there's lots to talk about, clearly, because we're just going through natural conversation is great, but I wanted to reel it back to kind of the show sort of direction and talk about the different locations. Normally one of the first questions I ask about where the person lives, what the network of authors is like around them in terms of do they meet up with writers, work with them locally, meet readers locally. But having lived in so many different places, is there one place as a writer and that network of writers that's really stood out for you?
There'd have to be Berlin, because in all the other places I've lived, South Africa, England, Scotland, the United States, Sweden, Canada, United States, Sweden, Poland, and Germany. Part of moving to Berlin, part of the promise I'd make to myself was I was going to take my writing career a lot more seriously. Because previously I've always had other jobs. I owned a bar in Cape Town for a while. I worked for Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs in the UK, His Majesty now. I was a janitor in Scotland. Like, I always had other jobs, but when I moved here, I was like, let me actually put more time and effort into being a writer full-time, not just part-time. And then, of course, Mostly Human came out, and then Poetry Club started, and I started building this proper reader-writer community that I'd never had before. I was always just, oh, and Jolly also writes books, sort of. And you know, when you don't interact with people that really take not take creativity seriously, but don't work in that field, they're normally like, Jolly writes books, we haven't read them. I'm like, thanks, guys. And when there's no one else to back you up, your response is just, yep, that is something that I do.
I mean, it's the same for us in terms of, you know, we both are self-published authors, but our main focus is the show and helping authors promote, you know, like yourself. So did you find it awkward to talk about, you know, your books in these writing clubs, or was it just kind of never on your mind to promote yourself?
It was never really on my mind to promote myself. I'm specifically quite bad at it.
I think
I try little things like I have bookmarks and stuff with pictures of my books on it now, and I'm doing stuff like this now, but this is all very new. And I mean, my first book came out 17 years ago.
Yeah.
It's usually just me going 3 beers in going, do you know, I actually wrote a book like that once, or...
You know, I saw, you know, we obviously research our guests before the show. One of the best videos I've seen book promotion wise was on your website. And if anyone
on behalf of all authors anywhere.
Yeah. So, you know, I was expecting this big heartfelt sort of reach out, and it was just buy my effing book. Love it. So if you haven't seen that, go and check out that website, and it's there. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to go on to part 2 of the show. I'm going to play a little video, and then we're going to talk about blurred lines, and yes, we will do that. So here is part 2. What's the story? That video has started cutting short. It's doing what I did. Okay, Jolly, tell us about Blurred Lines. What is that about?
Blurred Lines is the story of the elevator pitch for Blurred Lines is, what if you could hear what people think, but you have no control over that power? Which is as awful as it sounds. And Miles can hear what people think all the time. Everyone within a proximity around him, he can hear what they're thinking, and that's it. He can't block it out, he can't stop it, and it's just this overwhelming pressure, which I based on social anxiety. That idea that you think you can hear whatever everyone's looking at you, and everyone's thinking about you, and that sort of unconscious judgment that becomes this overwhelming pressure. And he knows that they're not thinking about him, but it's that same idea. And doing research into that led me into learning about safety behavior, which is something specifically common with anxiety, is the steps people take to protect themselves from situations like that become so drastic that it becomes negative again. They become so isolated that they're harming themselves in other ways. Of course, it's a book, so there's a plot, there's a story, there has to be a thing. And Miles, in his attempts to step away from not being completely isolated, still does things like grocery shopping and little adventures outside. And one day he hears in his head someone desperately screaming for help in a way that he knows isn't someone around him. It's sort of comes through on this different frequency. And he then has to start to wrestle with, I might be the only person who knows that somebody is in trouble. I might be the only person who can do something about this. Now I have to step out of my safe bubble, or I either have to stay in my safe bubble and accept that I'm not going to help this person that needs help, or step out of my safe bubble and do something about it. And immediately his walls start to crumble. It's a very traumatic experience for him either way, but he decides to try and do something and starts out trying to do it in a safe way, all online, checking and researching. And the more he finds, the more he realizes he actually has to go out into the world and maybe use this power to figure something out, to find the next clue to move him forward in the mystery.
It's a really cool concept. What do you think would be worse? Do you think it'd be worse having the fear of what other people think? You could hear that, or do you think it would be worse knowing that your mind could be heard by others? What do you think was the worst in that situation?
I don't mind if people know what I'm thinking. That doesn't bother me. I've very much lived with subtitles on my face. I don't hide much. People are being stupid.
What do you think, Chris? What would you pick out of that? Whether other people could hear your thoughts or you could hear theirs?
I'd rather hear theirs. I think it's a pretty cool concept. I think my question linked to that is, how do you write that? Because I can just imagine, obviously, there's so many challenges as a writer to try and get multiple people's thoughts when, obviously if he goes into a busy space, how do you sort of like navigate between the different thoughts he's hearing? Did you use like italics, or like, just what was that sort of process like?
On a practical level, I just used italics, but it also, because it's such a zoomed in book on Miles, having him have that ability also gives you the sort of the semi-multi-perspective writing tool, because you can interact with other people's experiences and perspectives through Miles, which was then a lot of fun to sort of also twist it and go like, well, this is what the barista is thinking and going through, and that's why she's in a bad mood that day, and Miles knows that. So it's also not necessarily sort of the omniscient reader, third person narrating everything, because the character also knows all of those details, because you're getting it through his power.
And I suppose it adds like multi-layers of tension, because like, say for example, like, this is probably a strange one, but let's say he walks into a bar and someone says, oh, he's thinking, oh God, I hate that guy. Like, obviously that would be quite difficult to take, but equally on the flip side, somebody could see him and go, oh, he's quite nice. So you've got like sort of multi-layers of consciousness, I suppose, to deal with in terms of how he reacts to their thoughts and also what they're portraying on face value. So again, how did you sort of navigate that process?
Well, it starts out when he's a teenager, and being a teenager, his first thought is, I can ask out the girl that I like because I'll know if she likes me or not. And then he very quickly falls into, I feel like I'm taking something that doesn't belong to me. Like I feel like I'm stealing memories. I feel it quickly falls into this, I feel invasive in a way that I'm not comfortable with. But his initial idea is like, cool, I will know exactly what to say to the prettiest girl in school, because I can hear what she's thinking. And he immediately learns that he doesn't have to try and be charming, she already likes it. But then the more time he spends with her, he's like, I don't need to know that about her. I shouldn't know that about her. I'm now invading people's privacy. Yeah. And I don't know how to deal with that. And that escalates very dramatically. And that's sort of where his anxiety or where his fear and isolation comes from, is that idea of, I'm taking from people things that I shouldn't have.
I put that question in the chat, and one response there is from Halo, says she'd like to hear other thoughts because she'd like to know the extent of Ross's tentacle fetish. So that's generally the consensus. They're hearing other people's thoughts, I think, is the safer bet, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can control it.
With the research then, I'm just wondering, because like obviously the only sort of perception you have as to how often people think in certain scenarios is your own. So like, I was just trying to think when obviously you mentioned the premise, like how often do people think? Because I don't necessarily would, if I could navigate that and sort of be putting that in the narrative, how much people think, like, was it a constant thing? And what did your research sort of come up with?
I spent a lot of time talking to a shrink, which was kind of fun, because it was like taking my character to therapy, which I think my character needs. Also because I didn't want to demonize or glorify therapy. I didn't want it to make it like the therapist is the bad guy, because that's very wrong. And I didn't want to make it, oh, after 2 weeks of going to therapy, he's magically cured, because that's also sadly not how that works. But I did spend a lot of time with a therapist talking about the different aspects of the anxiety disorder, but then also talking to people about what it looks like. How do you think? Do you have the constant narrator in your voice? Do you think in pictures? Do you think in sounds, words, And when he's in a coffee shop one day, he is picking up pictures from one person. He's picking up the words of the book that the other person is reading. He's picking up the feelings of the third person, like the tension and the anger. And he's starting to feel angry, and he doesn't know why. And he realizes it's somebody else's feelings. It's all this sort of turmoil. And then, of course, all of that blends together, and he can't separate them from himself, from each other. Excuse me. And therein lies the sort of the trauma.
There's a couple of questions based on that concept in the book. So I'll ask them now. We normally save them up to the end, but it's quite on what we're talking about. So is there a distance parameter to hearing the thoughts? Like, does there need to be a certain proximity? So if, for example, it's in a certain area.
Yeah, so it's the people around him, sort of within a proximity, he starts to hear what they're thinking, and the closer he gets, the more intense he gets. And if he touches people, then it's a full sort of mind invasion. Okay. The line between him and them goes away.
And Doc had a good question as well. He said, interested, maybe? Oh, I'm saying that, whatever.
Maybe?
Yeah. In a crowded room, is it like hearing a crowd all speaking at once, or are some voices louder than others? And on top of that, when you were writing, was that a consideration of yours?
Yeah, like, so in a crowded room, but it's all at once, and it's all in his head. And there are different voices, and it's the voices of the other people, but it's also, the closer they are, the more invasive, and he can't find his own voice in his head anymore. It's sort of, it's not just like loud noise, like loud music and lots of people talking, but you can still find yourself. He loses himself completely, and it's just this thing pushing in on him, and he falls and stumbles and can't think or speak, or he loses sort of almost loses motor control, because it's such a all-consuming pressure.
Halo put a comment in there that's just made me think now, because it's where's that gone? Wait a second. It'd be really interesting to sense different types of neurodivergent minds in this neurodivergent week this week. So quite a good comment. Had you ever thought about that? Not just hearing the thoughts of other people, but as a writer, when you're producing something like this, were you ever thinking, maybe I'll put someone in that has got maybe mental health issues, or difficulties, or attention disorders, all those sorts of things? Were you thinking of throwing those into the mix as well?
I did at one point have the idea of sort of bringing in maybe sort of a neurodivergent type of person that maybe whose mind he couldn't hear for whatever reason. But it was also, because it's such a zoomed in story, and Miles is already dealing with what Miles is going through, I thought that if I write a sequel, I might do that. I didn't want to crowd the book with too many cool ideas, if that makes sense. Like, it was, that's a cool idea and I could fit that in, but I didn't want to just put that in because I thought it would be a cool idea and go nowhere with it. Like, I had the plot and the story in my head, and I wanted to tell that story. But while you're writing a thing, you go, oh, that's a cool idea, I could put that in. I was like, but do I need to put that in? Can I save that idea for later?
I think the big problem is, if you, like you mentioned, the character that he can't hear, then as a writer, that's almost impossible to turn and get that across on the page, isn't it?
Yeah.
How are they going to?
It would just be somebody he'd massively gravitate to, because he can just have a normal conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there is a thing in the book specifically where he likes talking to people online, and he likes phoning people because he can't hear what they're thinking, and that feels more organic and more human to him because it's normal.
Yeah,
makes sense.
It's fantastic. There's a few people saying how amazing that sounds, and I'm sure they're going to have a look at it. And you can pick it up. It's on Amazon on his website as well, so please do have a look at that. And we'll put the link in the show's description too, so you can find it there.
Lines by D.I. Jolly. It's that one in the corner. It's also technically there, but I think my nameplate blocks it out.
There you go. Is that a hardback copy?
Yes. So Amazon, you can get them on Kindle and print, softcover, and hardcover.
Amazing. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go on to the final part of the show. We've got 15 minutes left. This is a chance for you, even though you've asked some great questions already. Please do consider sending them in. We've got our staple questions to ask. You can ask writing questions, random questions, whatever you like. Put them in the chat, and we'll find some to put up on screen as well. So
Let's come with some questions.
Community questions. Here they come. Yeah, get them in the chat, guys. Right, before we do our community questions, I've seen this twice. Robin Thicke dance challenge.
No.
Just tell her no if that's not going to happen.
No, Elizabeth, no.
Nope, there you go. So, first...
I also don't know what that is, so no.
First question from the staple questions is, if you could take any character from the world of fiction, whether this be a TV show, a movie, or a novel, and put that character into, say, Blurred Lines, what character would you choose and why?
See, I don't 100%. Thank you for that. No, I don't really know. I like the characters in the books that they're in to stay in the books that they're in. I could take some real people. I'd love to put like Bill Hicks in Blurred Lines and just actually find out what he was thinking.
I'm just getting the reference, by the way. Blurred Lines was a Robin Thicke song where he danced around a lot of girls with no clothes on.
Yeah. At the time I was writing the book, obviously Blurred Lines fits the name of the book very well, but also Amanda Palmer and somebody else whose name I can't remember in New Zealand during the pandemic did a mashup of Blurred Lines by Robin Thicke and Rape Me by Nirvana. And I'm like, oh, those go together really well and really fit what I'm writing about. I think I found the name of the book.
Right.
Yeah.
It was specifically that mashup because I was at that point writing about the sort of the invasive nature of the power, and I'm like, oh, that's uncomfortably correct. I think I have to use that.
Okie
dokie.
I mean, if somebody else is going to read your book instead of listening to that song, then obviously that's a good thing.
I agree. Please read my books.
Go on, Chris. Go on.
Yeah, the second question that we have is, if you could change the ending to any book or any fiction, TV, movie, films. Movie films are the same thing.
Movie films.
What would you change the ending to and why?
Now, see, this I've got a bunch of answers to. Because, I mean, I don't know, do you know Atlas Shrugged?
No.
By Aaron Rand, very controversial book. The philosophy is, and for another time, but narratively it's quite good. Spoilers for a book that came out maybe 50 years ago. I would have killed John Galt at the end, which is the character, but Aaron Rand wanted to also write the love story of the very successful woman and the very successful man, so he survives. But the one people might understand is I would have killed Luke Skywalker at the end of Return of the Jedi and kept Darth Vader alive. And make Vader be the Jedi that returns. Because, picture this in the Emperor, and now young Skywalker, you die, and Vader steps in a moment too late, but embraces the light, takes out the Emperor, realizes that Luke isn't going to survive, and then Vader at the end with the burning pile of Luke Skywalker with Leia looks across, sees the Force ghosts of Obi-Wan Kenobi, his master who failed him, who he's now embraced the light. He is now the most unlikely person to be on the light side, much like Yoda was this unlikely person to be this most powerful Jedi, and it creates that wonderful circle of the unlikely hero, the most unlikely person, and it fulfills the prophecy of bringing balance to the Force.
Very
killed Luke Skywalker and saved Darth Vader.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Mark Hamill would have preferred that as well.
Harrison Ford was just like, kill me, please.
Hey, great answer. We've got a couple of questions, so let's get them on. Paul, thank you so much. Great to hear from you. when you start writing a new book, how quickly does that plot for that book come to you, and how many times does it change, or during the process, I guess?
I don't start a book until I have a plot in my head. So I have an idea for a book, and I sort of point A to point B in my head, and then I go. And then it doesn't, like, the plot often stays the same. The story structure might weave a little bit, but I mean, the plot of a novel is usually a lot more simple than people think. I mean, the plot of Blurred Lines is man who can hear what people think, hears someone call for help, and goes and finds out who that person is.
Yeah. So
that story might change, but the plot is 2 sentences.
Are you a plotter or a pantster when it comes to your writing?
Recently I've been doing the whole outline thing because I've been trying to write quicker, but that's a personal challenge thing. Even with Blurred Lines, I had it in my head and wrote it from there. I never usually work from notes or an outline.
So for perspective there, Paul, I think for me, seeing things a lot like movies and pansting, I just follow characters in sense. So like Jolly says there, he's got like the overview of what the story is, and it just follows. But like my latest work is a crime fiction novel where I've really got to put the steps in. So it depends what you're writing and kind of what you know. So if it's a story about something you're really into, you've got a lot of experience with, I think that will come up a lot easier for you in that sense. Otherwise, maybe plot more. It's just that finding out what works for you, isn't it?
I like Halo's question. I'll put that up actually because it's a good one. So, there we go. Which scenes did you kill in the editing? Which again, I like that because it's a sneak preview of that process.
So I'm gonna boast wonderfully because I love this. When I read over Blurred Lines for the first time, it's the 12th thing I've written. For the first time, it felt like the book that I had in my head when I started writing was the book that I wrote. Like being able to draw your exact imagination. It was an incredible moment of like, oh no, this is the book I wanted to write for it when I started, and this is the book that I came out with. Mostly Human, on the other hand, we cut 15,000 words out of that book. For a whole scene in Cape Town with the sister that just isn't in the finished book, but I really liked. I thought it gave a lot of character development for the sister, who was a secondary character, who I really liked. Then the editor was just like, yeah, I get it. It does nothing for the story at all. And just took 3 chapters out of the book.
Wow.
And then literally I went dink and went, knitted it back together and went, read it and come back to me. And I took 3 weeks. I read it in 2 days, and then it took 3 weeks for me to begrudgingly admit that he was right.
Love it. Random question there from Anya. Thank you. What cryptid would you like to meet in the wild if you had to pick?
Give me a list of cryptids and I'll tell you.
There you go, Anya. There's your homework. Put some cryptids in the chat. Where we've got? Well, what else we got? Something in there.
Not Slenderman. I know that one.
Yes. Does he become a detective in the sequel? Obviously not if it's a spoiler.
Oh, I don't know if I'll ever actually write a sequel to Blurred Lines.
There you go. Have your travels inspired this book?
Probably, but not in a way that I'm aware of. I mean, you move around a lot, you meet enough people, and like I owned a bar for 3 years. I worked in service for 10 years. I've met lots and lots of people. And the more places you go and the more people you meet, the more you realize everyone's just someone. They just sound a little bit different. So
this is like a statement, but this is a good one. So shameless self-promo, tell us about your awards.
Oh, yeah. So Bait is a paranormal romance novel that I wrote mostly after being rude to friends of mine that worked in romance publishing, going, well, if I ever really wanted to get rich, I'll just write a romance novel. And my friends went, so do it then. So I did. And I begrudgingly won Best Paranormal Romance on Inkit, or Top Performing Romance, Paranormal Romance on Inkit. It then got picked up and put on their license app Galatea. It's now published independently by the publisher I work with, so it's the whole book is available on Amazon, Kindle, print, all that jazz. It is the most read book of mine by a country mile.
Yeah.
It is far and away the most successful thing I've ever written, sort of from that standpoint. People love it. It's some people's. I've had people reach out and tell me it's their favorite book.
Do you like romance as a genre?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
I did a bunch of research, as one does, and I realized there was a gap in the market where there just wasn't a lot of consent going on. And fair do, like, what people like is what they like, but you can also say, you know, consent can also be, for the lack of a more PG term, romantic.
Well, speaking about gap in the market, where we laugh about this every time we see it, and it's like once a year. Did you know dino erotica is a thing?
I'm not surprised. I know dragon erotica is a thing.
Well, yeah. Well, we haven't seen that, but we haven't seen it. We've seen books.
I've got a little question, which I feel like, you know, the title being Blurred Lines, we kind of have to play on that a little bit. But if the lines were to blur between reality and fiction, and blurred lines became reality, what would your biggest fear be if you had the same powers as Miles?
Probably the same as his, that overwhelming pressure of, you know, I like living in a city and I like people, and it would make being around people so uncomfortable and so painful that I wouldn't be able to be me anymore. It would break, would forever change me as who I am now. And I'd either have to break or become someone completely different.
Nice. Okay, we'll get one more question in the chat. There's a couple in there. We'll get one more in, and then we'll wrap it up, Chris, with the final question of the staple ones. Don, thank you so much. Oh, Doc, sorry. How much time do you spend just thinking the story as opposed to putting the words on the page?
Oh, when I have an active writing project, it's near constant. Whenever I have a spare moment, that's sort of the world I go off to in my head. It's the stories I tell myself to help myself fall asleep. It's this world that I just wander off into. When I'm not working on an active thing, I feel a little bit more insane, because when I'm quiet, I'm like, where do I go? What do I do? I'm lost in a mall. I need an adult. So constantly.
Yeah. It's a good question. Thank you so much. Chris, do you want to finish the statement questions for us?
Yeah, so the final statement question that we have is, you're on your deathbed, you're looking back at your writing career, what would you be happy with? What is success to you?
I mean, the easy metric of that is, you know, success and not fame, but like money and comfort, well, money and at least stability would be nice. But with what I've sort of achieved in my life, I brought up before, you know, I've had people reach out to me out of the blue, people I do not know, going, hey, I read your book, and like, it's one of my favorite books I've ever read, or you know, I read this book, and then I read this book and that book and that book, and I've read all your books, and I absolutely love your writing, or you're my favorite author, which 3 people in the world have told me. You know, that connection. I don't know if they realize how much it just sort of helps me keep doing what I do, because I'm not a very successful author. I'm just a very prolific and very published author. But not that I'd ever consider stopping, but just the writing takes a lot of work and a lot of time. And when it feels like no one cares, everything happens slower. But when you get that message sort of out of the blue from one random person going, I read your book, and for the 2 days it took me to read it, that was the light that got me through those 2 dark days. Thank you. And you're like, cool. I don't know how to respond to that, but that's amazing. Thank you so much for telling me that. And sort of that's the success I've achieved. And I think it's not a small thing to have achieved. I mean, even if it is 1 or 2 people, that's a lot. To know that you're kind of someone's favorite something.
Yeah. Just to do it once, I think, is amazing. To do it twice or 3 times is even better. So, you know, that's fantastic, and good answer. Thank you very much. Okay, so before we do this, wrap this up, guys. D.I. Jolly has a great website. So can you let them know what that is and where they can buy your books and follow you on social media? How can they do all that good stuff?
Cool. So I've got dijolly.com where you can read some of my short stories and read about my novels. I also have a Patreon if you want to help out there, which is where all my poetry club stories are. So that gives you access to 300 plus short stories, and that's patreon.com/dijolly, which is as it's spelt on the screen, but one word. My books are all on Amazon in print and on Kindle. Some are also in hardcover. You can find all of them sort of listed on my website if you want to look there, but also if you look up D.I. Jolly on Amazon, you'll find me. I have Facebook and Instagram, but they're not that focused, so you can find me there if you look for D.I. Jolly, but take that with a grain of salt if it's not consistent, and it's usually me trying and doing something weird, either holiday pics or something strange.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story. It's fantastic. And, the fact you said, you're not that successful, you're prolific, but you're out there doing things. You are getting people to say that you're their favorite author, you're winning an award. You're doing the right things, representing the indie world, and keep at it and keep building that community. So thank you from us. It's been great hearing from you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me.
Very welcome. Thank you to everyone in the chat as well. Three Dragon Press, thank you so much. Halo Magnificent Interview, thank you. And thank you, Jolly. Great interview. Chris, you two were also here. Thank you so much. Please do go and pick up Blurred Lines today. If you can do that, follow him on social media. And if you've got any follow-up questions, you can find us on socials as well, and Jolly. And then you can also send us an email. So have a great weekend. Get some writing done. Get some reading done. And we'll see you all all next week for a very brand new show. I don't know what I'm saying. Thank you all, guys. Have a great weekend. Bye from us.